I decided to create the 3 levels of modes of being as drawn out in this diagram here because I want people to understand that the world doesn't have to be so freaking doom and gloom all the time. World War III, it's already happening, okay? It's already happening, but it's not the war that you think, okay? World War III is happening in your mind. It's a battle for your mind. These are all charades out here, okay? Stop paying attention to all these things. It's just trying to distract and disrupt and divide each other ever more, okay? People are on the verge, societally, we're on the verge of a mass psychosis, and I really want to be able to literally draw out a reason in which why this is happening and what we can do to solve this, because this is not the doom and gloom channel that many people are attracted to. Many people want to live in fear because that's the only thing they have to feel. They don't know how to feel happiness. They don't know how to feel the pursuit of joy. Like, do you know how to feel like in the middle of a fight but still enjoy the process? Like, and I'm not talking about a fight as in, you're on the street. I'm talking about the spiritual fight. Okay, this is a spiritual war that we are in. We're on the front lines of the spiritual war here. And you know what I've concluded is I'm pretty sure that most people like that enter into the Regal Change Academy group that we have, in general, they are part of the special ops in God's military. Like, I feel like an admiral of some kind of unique like special ops or special forces in the Regal Change Academy community and school that we have. And it's because we all know that we need each other if we're going to make it through these next 5 years or whatever, like before the Agenda 2030 stuff happens. Okay, but without further ado, let's go into this. Okay, so the 3 levels of modes of being. Now, of course, there's going to be more to this, but these are going to be the most simplified versions. Okay, there's the practical, there's the intellectual, and then there's the spiritual. Now, you can see that the practical can sometimes be incorporated in the intellectual and the spiritual, but the practical is at the lowest level. Okay, it's going to be the most basic form of a mode of being in the world. It's not anything wrong with it, but it's not going to get you to that deeper sense of understanding of the way the world works. Okay, because if you knew how the world works, then you wouldn't be so freaking unhappy and in fear all the time. Okay, then you have the intellectual. Now, this could also be derived in the emotional side as well, but I figured I'm going to keep it simple for everybody. So there's the intellectual. Now, of course, the intellectual actually mostly operates in the spiritual domain, but it doesn't always know that it's operating in the spiritual domain. That's why it's living more in the practical. Okay, but it's its own entity though still, right? Then we have the spiritual. Now, the spiritual domain is it encompasses the practical, but it lets go of a lot of the silliness of the practicalities. Like, of course, it's good to live in like a practical way, but sometimes you need to look at the deeper things in order to see the greater perspective of life. Now, it completely encompasses the intellectual. Okay, you see that? Now, why did I do that? Well, it's because the intellectual is actually, like, to be intelligent means to not regurgitate information thinking that you're smart. Okay, true spiritual intelligence and just intelligence in general is more about how can you incorporate what you've learned and live out what you've learned to the best of your ability and just continue forward. Okay, intelligence is not derived from being able to calculate all the time or strategize all the time. That can be a big part of it, yes, but it's not the big thing. Okay, it's not the end all be all. Then, of course, you have the spiritual mode of being. Now, the spiritual mode of being, in of itself, it encompasses all of these together. And of course, I made it the biggest, even though it's a little bit lopsided over here. But you can still see what I'm trying to say here. The spiritual, it is the biggest because it's the deepest. But many people don't live in the spiritual. They're living in the intellectual and the practical. Okay? People that live in fear, people that live in the state of the doom and gloom, they're living in a hyper state of intellectual mode of being. They're too much in their heads. They're too thinking about this and thinking about that and thinking about this. This is where you have people that might be very high in openness as far as personality traits go, but they're very low in industriousness, conscientiousness, or even extroversion. And when people are low in extroversion and they're high in neuroticism, this is the intellectual mode of being is going to be their breeding ground. Okay, and there's not going to be much breeding going on there anyway because they're too crazed up about the existentialism of the world. All right, then you have the practical people. Now these are the people that are more like, you could say, useful pieces from Machiavelli's 3 types of people in the world. There's useful people, or useful pieces, that are just people that can be easily manipulated, or they don't look too into things. They kind of live simple lives, you know. Then on the flip side, you have the other 2 for Machiavelli's types of people are, number 1, as I just said, the useful pieces. The second one would be the lonely rebels. Okay, that's where these people are, the intellectual side. Then you have the players. The players live in the spiritual mode of being. Now, not everybody who lives in the spiritual mode of being is going to be good. Okay, the players of the game are not always going to be good players. Okay, evil does exist in this world, and that doesn't mean that it's a hindrance in of itself. It's just it's a fact that evil does exist. Okay, so the reason that I wanted to go through this is because it seems like many people want to live in the spiritual, but they are still stuck living in the practical and the intellectual. Why is this? Why is it the case that people cannot get out of their own heads? You have to increase your ability to have compassion as far as personality. You have to be open to experience, maybe a little bit more. You might have to be a little bit more disagreeable. Okay, a lot of people that live in the intellectual mode of being, they're either hyper agreeable or hyper disagreeable. That's what I've seen. This is what I've noticed. Now this is like, I literally just wrote this down, before I started filming this. So this is all fresh. This is all brand new stuff. But it's like, these are modes of being that are very indicative of what kind of person you are. Now, I strive to live in the spiritual mode of being because I understand that I must have a little bit of practicality in my life. I understand that I need to be intelligent. I need to be educated. Because it's funny about how when you finally get educated on certain things, you oftentimes change your mind about your viewpoints on certain things. But it's the education and process that's going to illuminate certain things. Now, this is not to say that knowledge is going to be the antidote to all of your problems. In fact, knowledge can sometimes be a hindrance to the illuminative. Why does that sound funny? Illuminative. It's sometimes an antidote to the illumination of the way to walk on this earth. It's sometimes a hindrance. Knowledge can be a hindrance because sometimes you might have so much knowledge that you stay stuck boop, 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 boop. You're just, the gears are always turning in a really not so good way. Like they're turning so much, it's like your engine's on overheat all the time. Okay, if your engine is on overheat all the time, you're hard-headed. You're so rational that you become irrationally rational. You become basically like a walking AI that is just regurgitating information from a database inside your unconscious, and you don't even know that you're doing this. Like, you're so crazy, and I don't mean this like, I might mean it literally, but you're so caught up in the doom and gloom that you can't even see the peace that exists in this world. This is the great thing about living in the spiritual domain and the spiritual mode of being. You can look out and you can say, "Ah, yes, there's evil in the world. There is tough things happening for people in the world. I sometimes have to go through tough things. It's just the way of life." But we have to remember the book of Job, right? What's the moral of the story from the book of Job? The moral of the story is, even when all of the principalities of darkness are against you and you're going through the toughest time in your life, you lose everything. Guess what? An omniscient, all-powerful being still wants you to win. That's pretty encouraging, right? It's pretty encouraging to understand that God wants you to win. God wants your heart. He wants you. But if you're going to be hyper intellectual about things and not see that there can actually be peace in the world, like, you don't need to fight all the time. And a lot of people that live in the intellectual mode of being, the biggest obstacle and the biggest enemy they face is always themselves. At least the people that live practically, they don't really have enemies, but they don't really have friends either, and they don't really know it. These people are like lost in what's the first circle of hell in Dante's Inferno? The vocabulary of it escapes me right now. Well, anyway, you get what I'm saying here. You're lost in oh my goodness, what is it? Limbo. You're lost in limbo. That's what it is. So a lot of people that live hyper practically, they're just lost in limbo. They don't really have a lot of drive. They don't really have a lot of passion. They don't really have a lot of ambition. They don't really have a lot of conscientiousness. But they're not any of those things. They're not those things either, right? They just do what they're told, basically. And they don't think too much about life. People that live in the spiritual domain and they operate from a spiritual mode of being in the world, there's going to be the fewest people in this realm, in this domain, even though it's going to encompass the most of life. Okay? So what I really want to get at here is, like, we've got to move on from the doom and gloom. We've got to move on from, I'm not calling for unity necessarily, because Christ himself said that he came not to bring peace but a sword. It's like, you have to recognize that it's okay to disagree and still be with people. What is up with the cowardice of today's day and age? And you know what's crazy? I just thought about this. I like, most of the people that I interact with on a day-to-day are fine people, you know. They're nothing too outstanding or anything like that. You know, they're fine people. And then you meet other people, and they live in the practical realm. Then you meet people that live in the intellectual mode of being, in that realm. And I just, oh my gosh, I get a headache just being around them, man. Like, I get a headache just being around them. Because I'll feel their tension in their minds. I can feel it. Because I'm highly energetic sensitive, I guess you could say. I don't like saying sensitive, but it's like, I think it's actually normal to be sensitive to energy. I don't think it's normal to not be sensitive to energy. And because the reason being is like people of God, people who are godly, they're usually the ones most in touch with their instincts and intuition, and they're going to feel that energy the most. And man, like I was at the bank today, and this guy that I was talking to, you know, on the outside, he seems like a fine dude, you know, seems like a chill guy, sure, you know, nothing wrong with the guy. But then you walk away from the situation and you're like, oh my gosh, like this guy is like stuck in his head, bro. Like you look into his eyes and it's like you're looking into the eyes of a robot. Man, it's crazy. Because like when you look into the eyes of people and you can feel this like mechanical like energy emanating from them, it's like they are just so stuck in their heads. It's like, ugh. Even just thinking about it gives me a headache a little bit. But you know, that's why it's better to live in the spiritual, because at least if you encounter evil in the spiritual domain, you know for a fact that you have what it takes to understand that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You know that if you encounter malevolence, you know that there's no weapon formed against you shall prosper. But these people that are hyper rational, hyper intellectual, stuck in their heads, maybe even hyper religious, it's like, oh golly, would you look at yourself in the frickin' mirror and like pull yourself out of this robotic routine that you are in? I don't mind routines. I don't think routines are a bad thing. But I like a little bit of healthy spontaneity. And it's like, can't you have a little bit of spontaneity? Like they're like, oh, I have to go to this at this time. I have to go to this and this time. Yeah. I don't like it. I just don't. Like, do something weird. I don't know. Like, you're going to really go to work at this time. Go home at this time. And for the next 2 hours, I'm going to be watching Netflix and playing Candy Crush and whatever. Like, I've seen so many freaking people that their biggest thing that they look forward to is watching Netflix at night. And then they doom loop throughout the day at their jobs. They just scroll through social media and such, or they're not even in the doom and gloom. They're just hyper focused on like the Roman theatrics, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's metaphorical. They're focused on the NBA finals, you know, that just happened. And they're like, that's all that they can talk about. And yeah, it's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's actually pretty cool to watch elite players, you know, play at their elite games. And, you know, I love watching tennis during the Grand Slam events. Wimbledon is coming soon. The French Open was just a few weeks ago. I guess actually just a couple weeks ago. And that was a great, you know, it was a great final. For anybody that didn't see it, it was a great final. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw the clips. And it was great. I love seeing elite athletes be at the elite level. It's great to see. But it's not my life. It's not my life. I focus on me. I focus on what I can control in the spiritual mode of being that I'm operating in. And that's it. I don't need the extra knowledge. Like, there's a song by Tame Impala. It's like, the less I know, the better. You know, sometimes that's freaking true, man. Sometimes the less you know is the better. And there's also another song that he has. It's like, it feels like we only go backwards, baby. I like that song too. Because it does feel like that sometimes, right? Like, it feels like we're only going backwards. like life is experienced linearly forward, but it's only I guess as Soren Kierkegaard says, he's a philosopher from a couple centuries ago, says time is only experienced forward, but life is only understood looking back. You know, that's a weird phenomenon, and very psychologically and philosophically sound. But anyways, guys, I wanted to come through with this video to encourage you to, like, where are you at? You know, where are you at in these three levels of modes of being? Where are you at? And are you in the kind of mode of being that you want to be operating in? Is the mode of being in which you're operating in making your life more chaotic and more crazy and more confusing? Or is it making more simple clarity? Because if it's simple clarity, it's probably going to be painful, but you're going to have simple clarity. So with all that being said, I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. Don't let the doom and gloom get you down, okay? Like, yes, things are crazy right now. The world is nuts. What else is new? I mean, freaking flies coming in here, man. If it's not one thing, it's another. But that's okay, because life is still good, man. Life is great. When I get to go outside and just be able to sit in the sun for a minute when I have a chance, you know, now that I'm not super sick anymore, I didn't go, geez Louise, I went to the gym for the first time, like hardcore, for the last, I didn't go to the gym for 4 days. Like, it was crazy because I was just that sick, and I knew I needed my body to rest. I have never gone that long without going to the gym in the last 4 years. I haven't gone that long without going to the gym in the last 4 years. Never. Now, before that, different story. But for people that watch my account and know me, and know my account anyway, they understand that that definitely wasn't the case with me. But, you know, the world is a beautiful place. It's terrible sometimes, but that's part of life. Life is its own goal, right? So with all that being said, I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. Peace be with you. Until next time.